Hey guys, it's Madison. Today I'll be reviewing The Bad Box by Carlton Mellick III, one of my favorite horror bizarro novels. Before we begin, I want to say you don't need to adjust your monitor because I am blue, and there are spoilers in this video, but I clearly mark when spoilers begin, so you know when to leave this video if you haven't read The Bad Box yet. The Bad Box is about a boy named Benny who sucks at taking tests. He's really smart and does good on his homework, but he has terrible test anxiety, so as a result, he always fails his tests. And in this classroom, every time you fail a test, you have to reach into the bad box and draw out a curse. The curse disfigures the child in some way, often creating conditions that make it harder for them to be successful in school. For instance, at the beginning of the story, Benny has already failed several tests, and as a result, his fingers have turned into banana slugs. Because how else are you going to teach children that they need to study harder in school? Children who get a perfect score can choose to have a curse removed, or they can choose to draw a blessing from the good box. Some of these blessings include angel wings and x-ray vision, and some of them are abilities that allow students to continue to do well in school, such as having a perfect memory. Tracy, who is Benny's crush, has a perfect memory, and therefore it allows her to continue to do well in school. Benny has pretty much accepted his fate by the beginning of the story. He thinks that he is destined to be a failure. He's bullied and alienated by his peers, and he thinks that that will never change. It isn't until one of his classmates, Mika, is falsely accused of cheating that things begin to change for Benny. Mika's curse changes her into a blue blob. Mika and Benny decide to become study buddies so that they can get perfect scores and have their curses removed. That's when things start to get complicated. This story is a metaphor for defects in the education system. Instead of helping kids who are struggling do better, a lot of times the system punishes them and gives advantages to students who are already doing well. The author describes The Bad Box as being a story about classism. Tracy represents those that are born into a higher social class. This is most obvious whenever she gains the superpower of being able to turn anything that she touches into money. Like most people born into privilege, she is given advantages that will help her be successful later on. Wealthy kids who are able to attend private school, get tutors, and participate in extracurricular activities tend to get into better colleges. Children who are labeled gifted because they're good test takers will tend to grow into that label. If people tell you that you have value because you're smart, you'll work hard to earn that reputation. Whereas if you're put in remedial classes and labeled dumb because you're just bad at taking tests, you'll tend to believe that that label is true and you'll just give up or do the bare minimum required to pass. And even if a student does try to do better, if they get labeled dumb by one teacher, future teachers may think less of this student because of their reputation. Unfortunately, sometimes it can be hard to escape the shadow that this label creates. There is a lot of debate about how much schools are obligated to do to help people with anxiety or learning disabilities. And some of it has to do with how heavily schools rely on standardized testing to measure intelligence and aptitude. More flexibility in how students are allowed to demonstrate their knowledge would really help people that just aren't good test takers. In the story, Benny is clearly an intelligent person and he is able to excel in other areas, and this story really shows that standardized tests aren't everything and they don't always show someone's intelligence or aptitude. One thing this novel does so well besides the social commentary is that it really makes you root for Benny. You want this kid to feel better about himself and to have these curses removed. There's one part where it says, he's a test passer, a winner, and someday everyone will like him again. Even Tracy, even Billy and the other boys, even his parents. That line about the parents just kills me because how many kids really do feel like disappointments because they fail a test or a class? It's painful and it makes his character so sympathetic. I rooted for him throughout the entire book. Common complaints that I see about the bizarro genre is that it is juvenile and lacking in substance, and although this book was written like a children's book, I think it is less juvenile than a lot of books that I've read, and it has more substance as well. At the end of this book, I didn't read this and think, what was the point of that? This story had subtext and social commentary about classism and the education system that was overt enough for anyone to pick up on, but not so preachy that it just hits you over the head with its message. The way this book is written is a little bit more simplistic than some of his other works. Carlton Mellick said that this book is for those that have always wanted to know what he would have done with a Goosebumps book had he been hired to write one. And I have to admit, after reading the first chapter, that is exactly what I thought. This is Carlton Mellick III tackling Goosebumps. This book is written from a child's point of view and it deals with issues that children face, such as bullying, mean teachers, and a dysfunctional education system. So I would say that this book is technically a young adult novel. Although I wouldn't give a child any other Carlton Mellick novel unless I wanted to irreparably scar them forever, After all, this is the guy that has written The Haunted Vagina and many other very disturbing stories. The Bad Box is a story that I would let my child read, if, you know, I had a child. This story isn't just about the education system, though. It's also about classism. There's many points in the story where Tracy complains about her blessings, and it's kind of annoying, kind of like whenever rich people complain about having money. Oh, once you can fly, it ruins all other forms of transportation forever. Oh, nothing is a challenge anymore. Having so many opportunities is so lonely. Oh my god, I was with Mika on this. I was like, I can't even with this winged whiner anymore. Okay, she needs to go. For real. It was so annoying. But that's what rich people sound like sometimes when they complain about all their wealth and opportunities. Tracy also talks about feeling how she was becoming a lifeless machine, which was important for the plot because it gave her a motive to want to destroy the boxes, but I think it was also a commentary on having too much opportunity and too much wealth can make you soulless and emotionless. Okay, we are now hitting spoilers, so if you don't want the ending ruined for you, you might want to leave right now, but please don't forget to like and subscribe before you go. So after Mika and Benny study really hard and Benny finally gets a perfect score, that evil teacher accuses him of cheating. Because of course he must have cheated, he's too dumb to get a perfect score. I can't count how many times I've heard stories of people saying that the teacher got them in trouble because they did a little too good on a test or they wrote a paper that was just a little bit too good. It's just so unfair and it shows how dangerous labels really are. Benny and Mika decide that they're going to steal the boxes and undo the curses themselves. This is where the story goes from not only being a commentary on classism and the education system, but also on the connection between the unfair education system and crime. If people aren't given a chance to get a fair start in life, they may be forced to resort to a life of crime in order to survive. This is exactly what happens to Mika and Benny. First, they're just stealing a box in order to get their curses removed, and then before you know it, they're hardened criminals killing others just to survive. This is obviously a dramatic example of the worst-case scenario, but it shows that people live up to the labels that are put on them. They were labeled villains, and that is exactly what they became. I think that the last line of this book sums it up best. Like Mika, he has no choice other than to accept that he is nothing more than a product of the bad box. On a literal level, this story is about magical boxes that punish bad test takers and reward good ones. On a thematic level, this story explores the broken education system and social class disparity, and how the unfair school system rewards those that are born with advantages and lets those that are not born with advantages fall behind. And it's also just a fun story about evil robot teachers and kids with superpowers and a blue blob monster girl that accidentally dissolves part of her crush with her digestive slime during their first kiss. As we've all done at some point. If you've read The Bad Box, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the book. If you're unfamiliar with the bizarro genre, be sure to check out my video on bizarro horror. I plan on doing a more in-depth video on this topic soon, so if that's something that you'd like to see, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.